The South Park Iceberg Explained. Hello everyone, and today I'm going to be covering the South Park Iceberg. This one is made by someone on Reddit, so anyway, strap in as we go on down to South Park and meet some friends of mine. Aired on Comedy Central. Pretty self-explanatory, South Park airs on Comedy Central, is on HBO Max. Another self-explanatory entry, HBO Max has South Park on it. Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Matt Stone and Trey Parker are the two creators of South Park who also voice most of the male characters. Matt Stone voices Carl Broflovsky, Kenny McCormick, Bradley Beagle, Mr. Testerberger, Gerald Broflovsky, Stuart McCormick, Craig Tucker, Butterscotch, Pip, Kevin Stoley, Peter Mullen, Terrence, Tweak, Jimbo Kern, Big Gay Al, Father Maxi, Jesus Christ, Mr. Adler, Natalie Portman, Saddam Hussein, Scott Malkinson, Dr. Mephisto, George R.R. Martin, Damien Thorne, and Bill Gates. While Trey Parker voices all these characters. Kentucky Fried Chicken. So there are two things this entry could be referring to. It could be referring to the fact that Cartman loves KFC, or it could be referring to the episode Medicinal Fried Chicken, where all KFCs in Colorado get shut down, which actually predicted the real-life event in the UK where many KFCs were shut down, Integrity Farms. So in the 22nd season of South Park, Randy Marsh and his family moved to a weed farm, and in Season 23, a new version of the South Park intro involving Integrity Farms was introduced. Morgan Freeman. So Morgan Freeman makes a couple appearances in the show. His most important appearance was in the South Park video game South Park The Fractured But Whole, where he helps the new kid with his new abilities. Cartman Gets a Probe. Cartman Gets a Probe was the very first episode of South Park. It aired on the 13th of August 1997 and was made using construction paper, r/South Park. r/South Park is a subreddit dedicated to posting stuff about South Park and asking the community questions about South Park. Man Bear Pig. Man Bear Pig is a hybrid between a man, a bear, and a pig. It was first introduced in the two-part episode Man Bear Pig, where it was just used as a metaphor for climate change, but would later become a real issue, just like climate change. Mr. Hanky the Christmas Poo. Mr. Hanky the Christmas Poo is a Christmas poo who was first introduced in Season 1, Episode 9, and since then has become an important part of Christmas in the South Park universe. South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut was the first movie made for South Park and was released in 1999. It follows the three main boys as they try and prevent the death of Terrence and Philip. The original title was going to be South Park All Hell Breaks Loose, however the MPAA wouldn't allow it as they don't want the word hell in their title, so they changed it to South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. If you still don't understand the title, just take a moment to process it. South Park The Stick of Truth and the Fractured But Whole. South Park The Stick of Truth was the first canon South Park game, with it being themed around wizards. It came out around Season 17, where the boys were going to war over whether they should get a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox. The Fractured But Whole was the second canon game that took place right after The Stick of Truth. It follows the boys playing superheroes and progressing through South Park. Finger Bang. Finger Bang was the name of a fictional boy band the boys wanted to start. South Park's hatred for Family Guy. So the creators of South Park really hate Family Guy. And I mean really hate it. Probably more than they hate Barbra Streisand. Anyway, they say that Family Guy is nothing but stupid cutaways and the whole show is written by manatees, which the more you think about it actually begins to make sense. Kyle's Mom. Kyle's Mom is probably the most known South Park song. The first version of the song was first featured in Season 1, Episode 9, and the second and most popular version of the song was featured in the South Park movie. There isn't much of a difference between the two versions, the only major differences being the beat, the ending, and this little language part included in the movie version. The main four graduated in the 4th grade. In Season 4, the boys graduated 3rd grade and went into the 4th grade, and it has been that way ever since. Every episode is produced in a week. So for most animated TV shows, it can take upwards of 6 months to a year to make one episode. But for South Park, it only takes 6 days. The reason why it takes 6 days, well, for one, South Park isn't really known for having the smoothest of animation styles, and two, they are given a 6-day deadline so that way they can keep up with current events. Tweak X Craig. Tweak X Craig is a canon relationship between the two characters Tweak and Craig. Initially, the relationship wasn't meant to happen, as the reason behind the relationship was because of the Japanese students drawing yaoi art of the two, but later they would grow to love each other on the show. Eric's father is Scott Tenorman. So this entry is actually a mistake. It's actually supposed to say that Eric's father is Scott Tenorman's father, but anyway. In the season 14 episode 201, it is revealed that Eric Cartman's real father was Scott Tenorman's father, which makes Eric and Scott half-brothers. The reason why it wasn't said in the season 2 episode was because Scott Tenorman's father was in the Denver Broncos, and the Broncos wanted to cover up the incident between Scott Tenorman's father and Leanne Cartman. Now, the most notable part of this reveal was that Eric made Scott eat chili made from his own parents, which means that Eric killed his father and turned him into chili. South Park Deeply Impacted and South Park Rally. South Park Deeply Impacted is a PC port of the original 1998 South Park game, and South Park Rally is a 3D racing game similar to Mario Kart. Season 1 made in stop-motion animation. Again, this entry is not really correct, as Season 1 as a whole wasn't made using stop-motion. However, the pilot episode of Season 1 was made using construction paper. Unhooded Kids. So what this entry is probably referring to is the few times Kenny has been seen without his orange parka on. However, the entry says unhooded kids, so unless there's some other kid who wears a hoodie that I'm forgetting about, then I have no idea. Bart Simpson in South Park. In the episode Cartoon Wars Part 2, Bart Simpson made an appearance in the show as he teams up with Cartman to try and get Family Guy cancelled. However, at the end of the episode, Bart ends up helping Kyle and defeating Cartman. Mitch Connor has a mind of its own. So Mitch Connor is one of the main villains of South Park The Fractured Butthole, and while it may seem like Mitch Connor is just Eric Cartman's hand, it is shown in The Fractured Butthole that Mitch Connor can change to other people's hands, so maybe Mitch Connor is a real entity and can transfer itself to other people's hands. Matt and Trey threatened by terrorists. So in the episode 200 and 201, the Prophet Muhammad would make an appearance in the show. The reason behind this was because of the recent controversies in which a newspaper company had published a comic on the Prophet Muhammad, which caused many riots and threats towards the company. So in true South Park fashion, they made fun of it. However, instead of this slight criticism towards the creators, the Muslim community sent terrorist threats to Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Kenny's mom repeatedly gives birth to Kenny. So in the earlier seasons, it was never explained how and why Kenny comes back every time he dies. However, in a couple episodes, Kenny's mom, Carol McCormick, is seen giving birth to Kenny every time. And he just goes back to his original age in the morning. Carol also says that they should have never gone to that cult meeting, so it is possible that some sort of curse was put on the Cormack family, and now Kenny dies all the time. Jay Leno provides Cartman's cat's voice. So Jay Leno is an American television host who also voices Mr. Kenny in the show, which means he only ever gets to say meow. Isaac Hayes suffered a stroke and couldn't play chef. So most South Park fans believe that Isaac Hayes left the show because of the Scientology episode. However, the son of Isaac Hayes revealed that Isaac actually had a heart attack and wasn't able to play chef, but Scientology forced him to say that he left because of that episode. However, sadly, on the 10th of August 2008, Isaac would die due to a stroke. I mentioned this earlier. Jesus vs. Frosty. Jesus vs. Frosty was the very first ever South Park animation. It was made on the 1st of December 1992 and follows the four main boys who at the time didn't have names, except for Kenny, who actually looked like Cartman in this episode, but despite looking like Cartman, he wasn't spared from death.
Oh my god! Frosty killed Kenny!
Same goes for the one that actually does look like Kenny. Anyway, they build an evil Frosty the Snowman, so they have to rely on baby Jesus to kill Frosty for them. The paradox in Grounded Vindaloop. In one episode of South Park, Butters is stuck in virtual reality, and while Stan and the boys try to help him, A customer service rep tells him that he's in a paradox, and the only things he can't do in a paradox is he can't die, he cannot get grounded, and he cannot call customer service. Untitled South Park GameCube game. So in the Nintendo Power issue 114 book, you can find this page, which shows Kenny and the GameCube logo, indicating that a South Park themed video game would be getting released. However, apart from the GameCube logo, there wasn't much other information on this game, until you got to the ending of the book, where you can see a screenshot from what looks like a South Park themed game, and underneath it you can see the publisher was Acclaim. However, it was never released. So what happened? Well, Matt Stone and Trey Parker decided to cancel the game, as the GameCube's main demographic would have been children, so having children exposed to South Park video games, well, wouldn't have been good. South Park deeply impacted with guns. So whenever you see a screenshot from South Park deeply impacted, you can always see that they're holding snowballs. However, there are actually some other guns like a cow launcher and something called a warp array in the gun, so there's that. South Park got sued 3 times. So if you've seen at least 4 minutes of one South Park episode, you will know how offensive the show is, especially towards celebrities. So of course this has led to many lawsuits, including defamation, copyright, and privacy invasion. Cartman's sister. So in the original version of the pilot episode, Cartman gets a probe. We can see that Cartman has a sister and a father. However, they don't say anything and they just sit there. So why were they cut? Well, when Comedy Central picked up the rights to the show, they trimmed down the original episode, and they also said that Cartman doesn't need such a big family. So that's the reason why they were removed. Who else thinks that Cartman's sister would act just like Season 21 Heidi Turner? The Spirit of Christmas. The Spirit of Christmas, also known as Jesus vs. Santa, was the second South Park animation made back in 1995. The characters and animation are nearly identical to what would later become South Park, with the only major difference being that Cartman wants to become Jewish, which, yeah, if you search up Eric Cartman Halloween costume, you'll see why that's very unlike him. Jerry Seinfeld refused to play a turkey. So Jerry Seinfeld requested to be in an episode of South Park, however Matt and Trey said that the only character he would play would be a turkey, so Jerry refused. Matt and Trey took acid before the Oscars. So when Matt Stone and Trey Parker attended the Oscars in 2000, not only did they show up in dresses, but they also took LSD beforehand. And if you watch the footage, you can clearly see that the two are acting strange. Cartman's lines are ad-lib. So often when recording for Cartman, Trey will often improvise some lines to make the show a bit better. Butters is a god. So what I think this entry is referring to is this meme post on r/South Park where it's titled Butters is a God, and also shows his alternate egos such as Margarine and Montequela. And beneath the image shows the butter companies with the corresponding name. Mr. Hat is alive. So Mr. Hat was a character, if you want to call him a character, who was a puppet or real entity that would always appear on Mr. Garrison's hand. However, in the later seasons, he would disappear, until he came back in Season 24. Grounded Vindaloop is a canonical ending to South Park. So I guess this is a theory saying that South Park is stuck in a never-ending virtual loop, but I'm not really sure. Jesus is dead. So Jesus Christ has actually died a couple times in the show. He does end up coming back though, because, you know, it's Jesus, but that's about it. I'm not sure if there's some deeper meaning to this, because that's all I could find. And that was the South Park Iceberg. If you haven't noticed, I used a voice enhancer for this video to make my voice sound better than it usually does. I'd also like to shout out Book of Alice, as he gave me the idea to use a South Park character version of myself for this iceberg. But anyway, if you guys enjoyed the video, then like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in another one. Bye-bye!
Open eye, feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing.